And that would appear to be consistent with these 8 studies on hip fracture.
Yeah. Well, the increase in fluoride that these people in the States have been exposed to from just water fluoridation may have contributed to the brittleness of their bone. Because the longer you live, obviously, the more fluoride you accumulate into your bone. And if you build up enough fluoride in your bone from the fluoride in the water, you may end up with bone that's slightly more brittle than average. And of course, we're concerned about hip fractures because that's a huge cost to the healthcare system. You know, studies show that it's devastating to these people, especially the old ladies, mostly women that are affected by this, end up in wheelchairs, and some don't live through the ordeal. They end up in nursing homes. There's been a study now saying that women would rather die than have a hip fracture because of the prospect of being in a nursing home in a wheelchair afterwards. So this is a huge issue that we should be addressing, and we should be looking very carefully at what we're doing to our bodies, you know, everybody's body. So far, Torontonians have only been exposed for 30 or 35 years to fluoridated water. What's going to happen in 60 years? You know, we're seeing patients with 2,500 parts per million fluoride in their bone. You don't see that in Montreal. So what's going to happen 30 years from now when people are 70 years old with 60 years of fluoridated water exposure? If we continue to expose our population to the level of fluoride that they're exposed to now, there's no question in my mind that we're going to see bone problems, severe bone problems, further down the road, 30 years from now. No question about it.
What about this notion of things around the bone? I guess arthritis, the joints. What is this concern? Could fluoride be interfering with the materials around the bone?
It's well known in the endemic fluorosis areas that the first sign of skeletal fluorosis is aching joints. Fluoride deposits actually in the joints, in the soft parts of the joints, the tendons and the cartilage. And that fluoride deposition results in real achy joints. Nobody, to my knowledge, has yet looked carefully at fluoridated cities or fluoridated populations and looked at the symptoms of arthritis to determine whether or not fluoride is contributing to this endemic or possibly epidemic of arthritis that we have in North America.
Could you give us any other concerns that you have? We talked about teeth and we talked about bones. What about beyond bones?
I'm quite concerned because I'm now learning the chemistry behind fluoride mechanisms and its toxicology. And it's quite possible that fluoride, even at low levels, could affect essential mechanisms such as the cyclic AMP second messenger. Fluoride is a known activator of G protein. And we figure, or some people figure, that fluoride could be affecting all kinds of cellular metabolism through this G protein mechanism. I'm concerned about the effect of fluoride on thyroid tissue. I'm concerned about the effect of fluoride on a number of other tissues. We've learned now that it accumulates in the pineal gland, that it may be affecting melatonin production. I'm concerned about reproductive organs and its effect on reproductive organs. There's lots of animal studies to show that at higher doses it's devastating to the animal's reproductive systems. So, you know, there are some studies that are coming out now looking at human beings in, you know, fluoridated cities where there's been 30, 40, 50 years of water fluoridation. We should be doing studies. We should be carefully looking at the effects of fluoride level exposures and the soft tissue effects.
How's the dental community responded to this latest research and the things that you've mentioned, the pineal gland and the G proteins and the other studies that you mentioned?
I can tell you that there's nothing in the literature that they would have read about the toxicology of fluoride. The journal Fluoride is not even in our dental library. I've now made sure, thanks to the generosity of the International Society for Fluoride Research, they're going to send us the journal back issues to put in our library. The dental community has no idea of the toxicology behind fluoride. The environmental issues is news to them. We really have to do our job to educate the dental community on the possible harmful effects of fluoride.
But we often get either dentists or representatives of the American Dental Association going in front of the public saying there is no debate, there is no scientific debate, there is no evidence of any harmful effects. Where are these statements coming from?
It's based on years and years of circular arguments. You know, when 30 years ago they decided to do reviews of the safety of fluoride, they didn't do the research, they didn't look for the harmful effects, therefore they didn't exist. The harmful effects that didn't exist. It's a circular argument. So they're ignoring more recent data that's coming up now with evidence that it may be harmful in even smaller doses that we had assumed. And they keep coming back to the basic argument that it's safe because we don't see any evidence of harm.
Just about nearly 2 years ago, I had the enormous pleasure to interview the late Dr. John Cahoon in New Zealand. And when we got to the topic of osteosarcoma, he said that he knew parents of children who died from osteosarcoma. And he said, he asked the rhetorical question, how many tooth surfaces saved could justify the loss of one child to osteosarcoma, if indeed that was caused by fluoride? Let me ask you the same question. I mean, how many teeth saved would justify some of the health effects that we may be getting from fluoride?
Well, I think the health care system, the people responsible for the healthcare system, should look at the total risk-benefit and make a decision. If they actually start making estimates on the cost to the healthcare system, even if there is an underestimate of the hip fractures, if there's an underestimate of the bone cancers, if there's an underestimate of the hypothyroidism resulting from fluoride interference with iodine and thyroid function, an underestimation of the reproductive effects, if you even make those calculations and add that to the equation of dental fluorosis, it's quite clear that the benefits do not outweigh the risks. The risks are far too high. If I was to provide fluoride to a patient in this dental chair and not inform them about the risks involved in swallowing this fluoride, if they take this fluoride toothpaste home, now there's warning labels on the toothpaste, but if I give a special formulation to patients and I say, take this home and use it, it's going to prevent dental decay. If I don't provide warnings and discuss the precautions and the harmful side effects that might occur when you swallow this stuff, I could be sued in civil law, in a civil law court for not getting informed consent. Cities have never obtained informed consent from their residents after putting or before putting fluoride in the water supply.
Why is it difficult to get people, dentists, doctors and others, to even look at this issue?
I think because the national governmental organizations have publicly stated they want fluoride in the water to protect people from dental disease. You have to completely turn around 180 degrees organizations like the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, the American Dental Association, the National Institute for Dental and Craniofacial Research, the NIDCR, which is a institute from the National Institute of Health. The public health associations recommend fluoride in the water. Everybody still recommends fluoride in the water. We have to eat away at each and every single organization and convince them that they're in the wrong position, that it can no longer be supported, possibly even legally. If there's enough evidence of damage, we may be in a situation to encourage people to to speak out and use legal means to stop fluoridation, because if they're being damaged without informed consent, without providing informed consent, they have a good legal basis to start a class action lawsuit. Now, I don't want to take that approach. I think education is probably the best approach. But unless they change their minds in the next few years based on the current evidence, I think it's time for litigation. One of the recommendations I've made is, because we now know that it doesn't need to be swallowed, that the public has to be informed. Again, informed consent. They should be told that it doesn't work by swallowing it.